Thank you very much for coming tonight. This is our November event. We've got one more event before the end of this year. Product predictions from corporate theater to strategic tool. I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land that we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas, the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by the Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas, the Credit. We are hosted by the very wonderful Electromind. Formerly, they were known as Intellaware. They've gone through a major rebranding. They've got a lot of amazing things on the horizon. Andrew's going to be telling you a little bit about this space, the company, what they do. They've been an amazing partner to the TPMA for over a year, and so maybe just a quick round of applause for them hosting us tonight. Want to say a few words?
Yeah. I'm not going to use that. I'll be quick. Welcome everybody to our space. It's great to see. We were just talking. It's great to see such a large group out. I hope that drizzle and cold didn't persuade anybody from coming. It's great to have you here. We're really excited about hosting this group. This has been something that we've been doing for a while now, and we love to see enthusiasm and sharing of thoughts and ideas. We recently, as Andrew just said, just went through a major rebranding exercise. We were formerly known as Intellaware, founded way back in 1990. So we've been around for a very long time. And we felt the timing was right for us to evolve our brand to better represent the services that we provide in the marketplace today. Interestingly enough, we come from a very deep engineering background, and we saw an opportunity to participate in the conversation upstream of the technology implementation work that we were doing, which coincidentally has a lot to do with product. We feel that there needs to be a strong continuum from strategy to design to engineering, and we saw some real gaps in the marketplace around that. So we've been growing dramatically. We've seen a lot of opportunity in the marketplace to bring a broader range of services to our clients, and we're really excited to be part of the conversation that informs the engineering work that we've traditionally done. And I think that this group is exactly the kind of people that we're happy to be having conversations with. So it's really exciting to have you here. I hope everybody is comfortable. It might get a little warm. I see somebody just turned the fans on. But we've got a great space, and I hope everybody feels welcome here. There's, just in case you're wondering, there's washrooms just around behind the wall here. I don't think I really have to give you any more site information than that. Welcome to our speakers. It's great to have Kim and Paul here tonight, and I hope everybody's looking forward to a good session. So once again, thanks for coming. Welcome, and have a good night.
Quick question: who's new to the TPMA? This is their first event? Hands up. That's quite a lot. Okay, thank you so much for joining us this tonight. You can tell it's the end of a long month because I'm already stumbling over the words. The TPMA is Canada's longest running product management association. It's also probably the largest one in the country. And we're committed to elevating the craft of product managers and product leaders across the GTA region. We do that through events like today, networking, with the online community, the mentorship program. Do we have anyone in the mentorship program, mentees or mentors? Okay, awesome. If you're interested in the mentorship program, it just launched, but we're always interested in learning more about other mentors in the community that could potentially be paired with mentees. So look up information. We also have a bursary for education, so upskilling, and a blog and many other things. So there's lots of different ways to engage with the TPMA. But ultimately, it is a volunteer organization, and it is powered by sponsors and volunteers. So we've got two other sponsors. Product Recruiter, which is probably one of the most well-known recruiting organizations for product managers in the GTA, head up by Heidi Round. We also have Lightster. Pat, where are you? Put your hand up, Pat. I'm not sure. I'm going to embarrass you. Hey, right there. Pat from Lightster is here. He's the CEO, right? Yeah, do talk to Pat about his awesome service. Lightster helps product managers and designers test features, prototypes, and do competitive analysis with their target audience. So if that's interesting to you, please talk to Pat, go check them out. They've been a great supporter of the TPMA. If you're a TPA member, you also get access to Perkopolis. So if you're not familiar with that, it's discounts on a wide variety of products. So learn more at our website. We have an upcoming online website, online event workshop in December 12th. So this is with a former TPMA speaker, Sam. It's all about transitioning from output to outcome, very common or well-known topic, but much harder to do in practice. So if that's an interesting topic to you, this online workshop is going to be on December 12th. So I mentioned, TPMA is entirely powered by volunteers. These are some of the people that are working behind the scenes to build the TPMA, make sure that we can deliver programming for you. If you're a volunteer for the TPMA, can you just put your hands up? Perfect. Can we give a big round of applause to all of them? It's a labor of love. We love what we do, and we love building this community. And so thank you so much for being a part of it. If you're interested in volunteering or bringing your skill set to our team, there's a volunteer page. We're always looking for interesting people to help give their 2 cents and contribute to our community. Okay, so the next big change on the horizon is we're introducing a new membership tier that comes with some new perks. So right now, TPMA membership is free, and it will always continue to be free. There will always be a free tier. But we're also introducing a community builder tier, which is about $30 per year, and that will include essentially a 25% discount on all TPMA services. So that includes executive coaching, events, mentorship program, and anything else that we launch. So this is there's going to be a number of additional benefits that are part of that. So we'll be launching that in the next coming days. But rest assured, you'll continue to have your free membership as an option. Okay, let's get to the fun stuff. Tonight's event, product predictions from corporate theater to strategic tour. We're going to start with Kim as our speaker, Kim Phelan. And she's got a great introduction for herself, but she's been a product leader for many years, specializing in startup and 0 to 1, but also taking a detour into Loblaws and leading up very senior positions at that organization. Kim, thanks so much for joining us. A big round of applause for Kim.
I'm told I need to stand on this spot right here, so, all right, let's get to it. That's me. Okay, there's some intro slides. Okay, moving on. Excellent. Okay, cool. Who am I? I am Kim Phelan. I've been doing product management for about 25 years. I'm currently the VP of product at ChargeLab. We're an EV charging software company in Etobicoke. Yes, there's startups in Etobicoke. I've worked at a lot of different startups. I worked at 6 different B2B startups from 0 to 1. Some of them you'll know, like Achievers, 2 Cows, Clearfit, Touch Bistro, Chef Hero, stuff like that. Then I went to the dark side because everybody loves Loblaw. To Loblaw Digital. Sorry for my friend who works at Loblaw in the crowd, but anyways, it's all cool. We all know about the PR. But I ran 3 B2C business product for 3 B2C businesses: Joe Fresh, Marketplace, and PC Express. So it was very much a night and day comparison between the two. So I'm going to bring some examples of both of those experiences. I worked my way from marketing, competitive intelligence to an individual contributor up to director and then VP. I did take a minor detour to become an interior decorator for a few years, but I won't go into that. But if you want to talk to me about colors later, I'm happy to do it. So I'm also a founding director of the Toronto APM program. So if you are not part of the program, talk to your boss and get them to sign up for the next cohort. It's really valuable if you're just getting into product. So that's me. I'm gonna talk about two big myths of predicting predictions inside of product management. First one is, what is the financial impact of the feature you're building, and when will it come out? So we're gonna talk about both of those things, a little bit of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then some tips about how I've done it in the past, and you can try those if you haven't done it before. So let's talk about the first one, predicting financial output of a feature. Ultimately, there's some brutal facts about predicting the financial impact. First one is that people are really nice. Canadians especially, they will tell you that they like your feature, but then they won't actually buy it or enable it, and what does that look like? When I was at Achievers, I was their first product leader way back when, so if you work for Achievers now, no one's heard of me there anymore, but we built a product which was a Salesforce integration. We were gonna make it so that salespeople could recognize each other on Salesforce itself. Isn't that an excellent idea? Of course we'll buy it. Nobody bought it. We spent all this time building this thing, but it's because they didn't want to say no, because they're very kind people. And it is kind of a cool idea, except for they weren't willing to pay for it. So that was an interesting go around for that. There's no silver bullets. I mean, I'm sure I could quote Marty Kagan all day, but you know, he talks about the fact that it takes multiple times to get things right. It's actually true. When I was working on Marketplace at Loblaw, and I'll get into more details on another slide of this one, but we did an exercise and we were trying to change the number of visitors who were seeing Marketplace items. Well, we did experiments over a 4-month period and incrementally made it better, but you didn't get it with the first rep. You had to learn things, see what people did, because people don't do what they say they're gonna do. They don't do things that you expect on a website either. So that type of iteration makes a ton of difference. Features also don't stand alone. This one's for Bruce, because he and I used to work together at Two Cows and Bragg too. Just because you built that thing doesn't mean people are coming yet. So they have to sign the contract. They have to implement it. In the case of Two Cows, they used to sell, well, they still do, services for ISPs to resell to consumers. Well, by the time the reseller signs the contract and then they implement it on their website and they do their own marketing, it could be 6 months between you building the thing and being really excited and the first sale coming in. So there's a really big gap between implementation and the sales process, and what does that look like? Really hard to predict. And then, of course, you can't always prove it. There's always lagging indicators. I like to make the joke about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, because it's this Friday and I'm really glad I don't work in e-com anymore because it's a really rough week. But, you know, correlation versus causation, you know, when everything goes up on the Friday of Black Friday, was your feature awesome? Or was it Black Friday? How do you know which one was which and how does that work? So how do you prove that type of stuff over time? Those are the brutal facts of where we're at when it comes to financial predictions. So all that being said, I'll talk about a couple of things that I've done related to you know, B2B and B2C and how to predict financial approach. So the first one, I apologize for this screenshot. It's really old, but it's the only one I could find proving the thing that we built when I was there. The internet's an interesting place, isn't it? So putting money on the line. This is an example. When I was leading product at Touch Bistro, we were working on a product which was called the self-service kiosk. Now, of course, this is all very normal. We all know the McDonald's screens. Everybody goes and orders their own stuff. But at the time, it was pretty new. And so what we were trying to do was prove whether we could get people to buy this thing. And so we actually created a partnership with the sales team. And we said, okay, cool. How might we identify people who this might be a good target for? Get them to be part of a beta, get their buy-in, get their feedback, and also get a letter of understanding and a letter of intent. So what we ended up doing was actually booking 300K of ACV because these people were so committed to the feature that they were willing to buy it. What was interesting about that one, and I know there's, you know, we could have a totally different session about relationships between product and sales, but in this particular case, by getting them on board, our goals were totally aligned. They got the commission, we got people using the product feature, and it really worked out really well. Now, obviously, you have to come up with your own ways of doing this inside your organization, but it's an interesting way to try to get people to put their money where their mouth is versus saying, cool, I like it, yes, that seems like a good idea, and then doing nothing. So that's definitely a different how to do it. The next one is around B2C. How many people are in B2C here? Okay, all right, 20%, cool. I think the big one here about B2C, so when I was at Loblaw, the first product that I worked on was called Marketplace. It's no longer, it didn't make enough money, but that's fine. You learn things. But the idea was that we were selling, third-party sellers were selling on our platform, kind of like Walmart's Marketplace, Best Buy's Marketplace. And they were selling in the baby, pet, toy, and home categories. And so we were on the loblaws.ca site, we were on the No Frills site, you name it, we were on all of them. Except for most of the people coming to that website were buying groceries, they were not buying marketplace items. No one buys a sofa and groceries at the same time. I'll give you that long hint, took us a little while to figure that out. Anyways, but the point was is that it was our job to improve that funnel, and how do we predict it? Because of course, the finance people were over our shoulders and saying, when are these numbers gonna get better? How are we gonna do it? What's involved? So I worked very closely with the finance and marketing team where we broke out our funnel where we were at. This is just a funnel I found on the internet, but the point here is we were only getting 1% of PC Express visitors looking at marketplace items. That was kind of pathetic. So we were like, well, how do we take that number and increase it? So we've actually made a model that said, okay, so if we increase site visits, if we increase add to carts, what do we have to do to move all these numbers up? And we put dampers on it to make sure we were doing it the right way, so we could estimate what would fall at the bottom in revenue. We kept all the other variables the same, but the idea of saying, okay, so if we're able to get visits to go from 1% to 8%, what happens to the bottom line of that business? And we did it very incrementally, because we did releases every, let's call it week and a half, 2 weeks, we were doing experiments to try to improve this number, and we get 2%, and we get another 3%. And what did that look like to be able to hit that 8% of visitors? And then we did the same thing as we worked our way down the funnel. As you can imagine, because of the shape of this funnel, more stuff you do at the top, the better you do at the bottom. So we did that. And then add to cart. We said, okay, what do we have to do to get more people to add to cart? What does that look like? So we added related products. We added reviews, things that you guys would expect to have on an e-commerce website. We didn't have those yet. So how do we build those in? And then finally, we worked at the checkout process. So by doing that, we were able to predict using just a spreadsheet of like, this is our standard funnel, how do we do it? And then work our way through it. And every time we did a release, we'd say, okay, we only got 2%. So what do we think the next thing we're going to do is? And we got better and better and more accurate as we worked down that funnel. So, but the thing is, what's interesting is that I think everybody would know all sorts of products have funnels. Like even if it's not B2C, you've got a funnel in there somewhere. ChargeLab has got a funnel in our driver app. How many people stand in front of an EV charger and decide to start a charge? How many people actually successfully start that charge? By the way, that number is not as high as you think it is. So the point is that what we're doing is looking at those numbers and saying, great, how do we fix that funnel? And we will be able to estimate how much more money we will be transacting inside our system. So that's the sort of approach. And then, I always put a damper on all these things because we're optimistic humans and it always takes multiple iterations. So, take half of what you think you're going to get to and then work your way up. So that's definitely how I've done the financial side of it. Obviously everybody's different, your organizations are different, but feel free to beg, borrow, and steal any of these ideas to say, is there a part of this that I can use inside my organization to be able to do a little bit better prediction of how to go about it? The next part, which one am I at? I'm okay, I'm there. All right, cool. I can either talk really fast or talk too much. So, all right, prediction myth number 2, that your roadmap dates are predictable. So I think this is another one. There's some brutal facts with this one too. Again, apologize for the graphics. This is my first presentations in public since the pandemic, so a little rusty. But brutal facts about dates. Dates have a two-sided problem. The first one is that if you provide the dates early, you're probably wrong because you haven't gone through the process yet. But the other side of this problem is that businesses need dates. I mean, they don't need as many dates as they think they need, but that's a different conversation. We're going to get into that. But you really did have to find that balance between those two things. The second one is you learn things as you build that you didn't know going in, that this whole section is way more complicated than you thought it was, and it's going to take you a lot longer. And that's problematic for that date you already put out there. And then if you have too many dates, if everything has a date, then nothing is a date, because you really have no room to wiggle and you've got no flexibility to be able to figure out which thing you're gonna drop, because everything's got a commitment. So that's a big problem with having too many dates. And then finally, padding. Usually people say, well, you know what we'll do is we'll just add 30% onto our estimates and that'll make it easier. Well, then your problem is just a little 30% further than it was before. And then also people don't trust you because they know you're padding. And anybody will be kind of like, that smells a bit like BS. So, you know, it doesn't really build a good trusting relationship. So you're kind of in a dark place with dates. I have a couple of tips that I use when it comes to dates. Again, you have to be pragmatic. Use these things as you can. The first one is rocks and jars. So anybody who's worked for me in the past knows about rocks and jars. It's two analogies mixed together, because I mix analogies all the time. It's very embarrassing. But the first one is rocks in the stream. So first off, when you look at this stream up here, those big rocks aren't going anywhere. But the sand and the pebbles down below, they're moving around based on what's happening, the current, new things happening. It's much more flexible. And then the second one, has anybody ever heard this story about the rocks and it's usually supposed to be about work-life balance, but I've totally co-opted it for roadmap planning. The idea here is that if you put your sand in first, all that little stuff, you're never gonna do the big rocks. And then a year from now, your team's gonna look back and say, what did we actually accomplish last year? Because the big stuff that you said you were gonna do didn't get done. So where I'd like to start with this is keep your eyes on the big rocks. Those become the things that you commit to, that you will try to move mountains for, literally in the big rock analogy, to be able to keep in place. But things like the pebbles and the sand, those smaller projects that are a little more flexible, they can flex. Or you could say, no, we're not going to do that. This one's, but at the end, I find this one works really well with executives because they really care about the big rocks and you sell it that way. And if you can then pitch that one and say, but we're still working on these big rocks. And then realistically, you can add flexibility to the sand and the pebbles. You know, maybe you drop the scope, maybe you move it out a couple months. What does that look like? As long as you hold to your big rocks. And then finally, there's a caution. You can't have too many big rocks, otherwise you get yourself screwed again. 10 to 20% of big rocks is probably the max that you want to be able to get to, because otherwise you start losing flexibility about where you can maneuver with your team. If you have too many, then you're back into the old place where you have too many dates and nobody believes anything and you have no levers to be able to address this. So this is a big one that I definitely work within, because while I would love to say that everybody is totally cool with outcome-driven roadmaps, we're not there yet. And so this is an important way to think about it. And this is a new one that I'm working through right now called the landing zone. Some people have heard of the now, next, later roadmap. People know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
I have not met a lot of executives who like the now, next, later roadmap because it doesn't give them something to hold on to. And they really wish that that thing was coming when they, you know, when is it coming? So this is a way to kind of scratch the itch, but give you a little bit of now, next, later in your life. So the idea here is saying, how might we provide landing zones of things that we're working towards? So for example, right now my team is working on a roadmap review for our executive team, and we're going to talk about what's coming up next month. Well, we know if next month is next month, we should know, right? We've got a lot of accuracy about next month. Then we're going to have the next quarter section, which is like, okay, it's going to happen in the quarter, but I'm not quite sure yet because we haven't done discovery, but this is kind of where we're aiming towards. And then there's beyond.
Hello.
And so it gives people something to hold on to.
अगं Google Doc वरती online open कर आणि तो edit
I
कर.
learned about this from the ex-VP of engineering from Xero,
काय
and they
करतेय?
use it there. And that sort of idea, 'cause
Drive
it allows
वरती
you to have a
टाकतो.
conversation about the fact
Word
that
वाला.
we're so close,
So that
not
it
that
opens
close
up
to the
to edit.
destination, so I'm not exactly sure how this is gonna land, but I can at least tell you it's in Q1. Great. And that's an interesting way to go about that. And then finally, utopia, remove dates altogether. Ship iterations towards outcomes. So I think that, and this is where we all want to live. I'm gonna go to that session because I really want to see how other people are doing it. Having business outcomes you're trying to drive. So when I was talking about that funnel, that's how we did it. We said, we're going to improve visits by 8 to 10%. And we did it very incrementally, but we had to ship often and build trust with our stakeholders so they knew we were doing the things and we were working towards those outcomes. You have to do small iterations to improve those outcomes, and you have to focus a lot less on the feature being delivered and very much more about what progress is being made. And this is a mind shift for people. So if you want to be able to accomplish this, first one is your stakeholders need to trust you. This is a leap of faith for people who are used to a date-based roadmap. So you have to deliver on outcomes, and then that trust needs to be earned. So one of the things I think about is the idea of maybe doing it for some projects, and then getting people used to that idea. You have to have a heavy metric orientation. You need to prove that the thing that you did is making a difference. And then finally, you need to be able to release rapidly. If you are releasing once a month or you're releasing once a quarter, this is not going to play for this, because you need to be able to show rapid progress. So reality is different than that. A little old reference here. Anyways, when Winona Ryder hadn't got herself into trouble, then made lots of money on Stranger Things. Anyways, outcomes is the dream, but not usually the reality, and I think we all know that. I always think of this as a mixed bag. You need to be pragmatic. So pull out the tool that's required at the time, and decide how you can't fight every fight. You have to decide when you need dates and when you can be more flexible with your outcomes. So dates are going to happen. There are things that happen in an organization that you have to be able to deliver to a date. As I used to say to somebody over there, no one's moving Black Friday to Cyber Monday. We got to make it. Like there's no two ways about that thing. Or there's a big trade show that you're launching your next product at. Whatever that big date is, dates are going to happen. So you have to work within it. But then try to push for flexibility on the edges, in those pebbles and those rocks, to be able to see how you can fit the smaller initiatives in and build trust as you work towards those outcomes. And then finally, pragmatism. It is your job to figure out what tool you need to bring to the party at any given point in time. I think that when people talk about the idea that we just do it this way or we just do it that way, it's a bit naive, and you have to really flex about what your organization needs. And sometimes you get a win and you can go all outcomes, but sometimes you have to earn it. So there you go. That is my presentation.
So we will be doing a Q&A after Paul's presentation. So if you just scan that QR code, you'll be able to put in questions. You'll be able to upvote other people's questions, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So we'll just give a few seconds for that. We'll put it back on the screen in a second. Okay. Next up, we have Paul Sham, lead product manager at Glassdoor, and he's going to give his own introduction, a bit about his history as well. So I'll hand it over to Paul right now.
All right, I think my next to Mark. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about myself first. Lead product manager at Glassdoor. I joined Glassdoor. I'm working on a community product, which is a new product line. I joined them through an acquisition of the startup I was working at, Fishbowl. It's a professional social network. I did transition from software engineering to product management. I know PPMA, there's a lot of people interested in doing that. It's not easy. It is possible. I'll give you a little bit of hope there. Before that, I was a web developer at LinkedIn. And a few extra things about me. How do you tell if someone's a runner? Don't worry, they'll tell you. So enjoy. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. When Andrew asked me to speak, I don't know, 1 week ago, threw me right into the fire. I was like, okay, that scares me. That scares me in a good way. Let's do this. And then, I read what the topic was, and it was product predictions. And I really thought to myself, what do I know about product predictions? I've worked at my product experience. I've been working at a startup. I've been working on integrating the startup into a new company and building out a product line. When you're working at a startup, hopefully you're too busy inventing the feature to really predict it, but you also realize that accurate product predictions can be costly. You're digging through data, you're trying to find as much proxy data as possible. It's time. And so you got to move quickly. So I really felt, okay, I don't know much about product predictions, but I have been taking this approach with integrating a product line into a culture that expects a lot of prediction. Glassdoor, founded in 2007. They have a very strong product market fit, a very large user base. And here I come with, hey, we got a new product line. And hey, we don't know exactly what this does to your existing product market fit. We know there's synergies here, however you want to say it, but you can yell at me all you want, but we're not going to get great accurate predictions. We don't have the data for it. So what can you do if you can't predict the future? Well, what I've been really focused on is painting it. You know, you're working with execs, you're working with teammates, partner teams, and they're looking at you with a culture of, okay, where's the impact going to be? And you're saying, I'll tell you where we need to go. I need to build that trust on where we need to go, and we'll slowly start to see this change happen. So I'm going to talk about a specific feature that I just released, video on Glassdoor. This was a big feature launch. I'd say if you could sprint for 6 months, it's a 6-month sprint. Even our partner video team that we used, Glassdoor, said this was the fastest anyone's integrated with them, which is a testament mostly to the engineers and designers I work with. But it was a lot of work. So I'll tell you where we started. Fishbowl. You can see a little video. We were acquired in 2021. It is a very heavily text-based social network. As you can see on the, well, what you could have seen on the left, there's a lot of text. Yes, you saw some polls, but those were built after the acquisition. And it did have a strong user base, but it was pretty niche. You're looking at specific professionals in certain industries, consulting being a big one, advertising being another. And so why video? Well, we needed to move beyond these niches and to figure out where does product market fit live for a broader professional audience. So there's an example of what we built for video. A few important things. Video is not just a feature, it's changing your content strategy. It's changing, you know, who do you work with, your marketing team, your community development team. How do you moderate your content? So it is beyond just, okay, we'll figure out how to build and design a video player in the app. It's changing everything. And as a product manager, that was on me to figure out. Yes, I had great teammates to lean on, but it really felt like, okay, we're going to do this product-led feature. Tell us where we're going to go. And generally, why video? You know, I think I still love text-based social networks. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like reading long things on the internet, but there's a reason why Medium, Substack, sorry, all you email writers out there, there's a limited market for it. Video is a stickier, more engaging experience. And so even your more text, or like historically text-based social networks, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, they are leaning more into that. I'd say Pinterest is another interesting example. Even though they were image-based, they are leaning more towards video. So a lot of fun questions that I couldn't answer. You know, from engineering, this is one of my favorite ones. How many seconds of video? They're trying to figure out the budget for how much capacity we need. How many seconds of videos are we going to watch? I mean, we're going to roll it out. I can give you a few examples of the controls that we have, but we're going to have to figure this out. Marketing, what's the segment used to ask for this? Well, I can give you, here's where the way the industry is going. I can't give you, you know, specific examples of these are the cohorts that we think we're going to resonate with. Designers, are we just becoming TikTok? That's a tough one. And we'll get to that one. You know, ML, how's the feed algorithm? What are we optimizing for? And I can give you guesses. But there's no grounded experience, grounded data I can give you. And obviously from leadership, what is going to be the expected impact of this? And so you can guess all you want. I could have come up with proxies, but at the end of the day, we had to tell them, hey, we believe in this direction. We think this is what the impact will be generally, but we're not going to make an estimate. It's just going to be so inaccurate that, you know, we're not going to do it. And so all of these questions come to where are we going? And I think one of the important things that I realized in all those questions is they're looking to me not because they need those answers, it's because they want to know that I've thought through this, and it's on me to build that trust that I know that the direction is solid. And so I'm gonna take us through an exercise that really helped all of my partner teams lean into this discomfort around change. You know, taking that very established culture and inner approach to say, hey, we're going to be shifting things where there may not be the same basis. It's going to bring alignment. I would say this exercise brings alignment for how we need to shift the product. I think this is an important one. Where are the bounds for where we think we are no longer within our product strength? And where's our place to play, but ultimately where's our place to win? So I'm going to test this out. This was an exercise we did, and it's called a tensions exercise. So I'm going to try to walk through it real quickly. You have two things on either end. Both of these things are good, but they cannot, you need to lean into one versus the other. They can't coexist. And so the question I have for you is, how would you categorize your current product's approach? And so you can't pick zero. There's no fence sitters here. But given your current approach, let's say you think, oh, I'm working so quickly, I'm a 5. So you raise your, oh man, I mixed this up. Raise your right hand, 5. If you're saying, oh, well, maybe I'm a little bit slower, but I lean more to quality, maybe I'll do a 3. So on the count of 3, think about it, and we're going to all raise our hands together for how you think your current product is moving. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, remember that number, hold it up, because there's going to be a follow-up question. Where do you think your product's approach needs to be? So same thing. 3, 2, 1. No zeros. No, I think I see some zeros. So who here felt like they had a big shift in where they are? Okay. Now imagine doing this with your team. This kicks off the discussion of, hey, this is where we are. This is where we need to be. And so you're not here with your team, so I can't have that discussion with you. But I'll use this example. So this is what we did. We put a bunch of different things on either side. We really spent a lot of time actually talking about the tensions that we had around what we needed to change. So for example, and we also mapped competitors. I don't think I'm revealing anything too secret. LinkedIn, identified voices. Everything you do on LinkedIn is connected to your identity. Glassdoor, anonymous. So where did we need to go? Obviously, we need to shift a little bit more in that direction. How comfortable are we shifting in that direction? And I think that sets the tone for your team to say, okay, we are shifting. We're taking what is a very strong product market fit, an existing user base, and we're going to change a little bit. So I'm going to walk through all of these, but this is extremely helpful to lay the land, to get a lay of the land of, hey, this is where we're going. This is where you can express, hey, we're going too far. But more importantly, we're saying this is where we're going to win. It's a lot of feelings. It's a lot of, you're trying to put numbers to feelings. But I think once you see that all together, you have those discussions. It did help a lot in navigating, hey, this is where we need to go. I can't give you all the answers in hard data, but we're going there. What's my time track on? Yeah, I have time? Okay. So I'm going to shift more towards the tactical part of how we got there. One of my favorite things, you got a launch date. What do? This goes back to the whole point that video is not just a feature, it is a content strategy. You have marketing who has their partnership with content creators. You've got to hit that timeline. I mean, obviously you can always shift. There's a lot of uncomfortable conversations if you want to do that, but we were aiming to hit that launch date. So I would say the first and most important thing I said early and upfront, primarily for our engineers, was, hey, product design, we're moving fast. Give us some grace if we have to go back near the end and say, can we tweak the small things? But there's a trust that I'm asking for, but also I'm giving them to say, hey, I know that I can manage the scope. Trust that I can do that. And I'm going to cut scope until it hurts. And this was like the first MVP where I'm like, oh, we're really cutting that. Okay, let's keep cutting. Especially with a feature that I know we're not first to market on. We we have a lot of unknowns. How are we going to compete in this space? But we're going to cut until we really have an MVP. One other learning I had to reaching this deadline, you want high confidence engineering estimates, and that requires really locked down designs. That requires final approval from design leadership. You're going to get a lot of requests like, oh, these icons, can we change them to look like this a little bit? No, like we have our high confidence estimates. This is how we're going to meet this timeline. Yeah, building trust. And so this is as you are getting closer to the deadline, you know, your execs are getting a little antsy. They're, are we actually going to hit the date? How confident? I'm pretty sure there was exercise meetings where people were saying like, well, I'm 90% confident. And I'm like, okay, oh, today I'm like 85% confident. I don't know where these numbers are coming from, but we had conversations like that. But what we really had to do was start figuring out release schedules. And so I think this kind of gave execs some early visibility into what we're releasing, even though it was not public. I would say the most important thing about alpha and beta releases, we did 2 alpha releases internally, 1 beta with trusted partners. You gotta carefully select your release cohort. You gotta know, do they understand where we are at? Do they understand we're going to give them early access? It's going to be buggy. They're not going to say, hey, I found 100 bugs. We need to fix those. They're going to give you accurate feedback. But the other thing you got to do is set clear expectations. I wrote exactly what to expect, exactly all the bugs that could be found that I knew of. And that really helped set the expectation. And then if somebody, you know, did point out something, I was like, well, I did write it out. Here it is. Please give us the grace to keep moving. Communication channels. This is a big important thing, especially a lot of visibility, a lot of leadership visibility. You know, I'm assuming a lot of us are in Slack. It's just so easy to be like, to get a leader DMing you and saying, hey, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? You know, establish your communication channels. It makes your life a lot easier. And obviously bake in QA time. That, even if it requires cutting scope, we had to do it to reach the goal. How did we do? We launched, great success, and now we launched. Now the hard part begins. Now we have to figure out what's the impact. A lot of, I believe, trailing indicators is what Kim had mentioned. You know, a lot of iterations on the content and figuring out long-term, what does this mean for the product? So we were able to get everyone on board, paint the future, and we're figuring it out now.
Thank you very much. So we're just going to transition to question mode. That's just. Chef 1-2. Okay, great. So I'm gonna go grab the questions real quick. Yeah. Good timing to lose the question out. So when did this feature actually come out? When did you launch it?
September of this year.
Okay.
September 15th of this year.
And can you say anything more about what the impacts were so far? Did your team have more trust post this launch or less trust?
I think it's more trust, but more questions. You know, I think as we're digging deeper, you know, it's not just, okay, how much are people watching, but it's the overall impact of this feature to the entire Glassdoor ecosystem. So, yeah, it is trust, but with more trust comes more responsibility.
Isn't that true? So this will be a question for both of you, and maybe we'll start with Kim. What tips do you have for advocating leadership on an outcome roadmap, especially for a culture that's more used to like output driven products? Do you have any advice?
It's a long road, so I think that's the first piece of it. I think one thing that I like to use is examples where we did the thing, but we didn't get the results that we were looking for. So the idea of saying, we released this thing, but it actually didn't do what we thought it was going to. Or we did it, but it took us multiple iterations to be able to get there. Using those examples to show that if we started from the outcome first, we could have iterated our way towards it, and then also shown progress about what that looks like. And then I also think the idea of, the premise of saying that the people who are deciding what's on your roadmap are the furthest away from the actual solution, trying to come back to that and saying, we did the thing that you said, but actually no one was using it, and we could have done it in a different way.
So is that sort of draining trust from them and bringing?
Yeah,
it
it's
to
a little
you?
bit of tough love, but you have to, obviously you have to be very careful about how you say it, but it is like, people know when a feature's a flaw.
Yeah, I think you said it's not easy. I'm pretty sure we've all worked with leadership that has their pet projects and they believe fully in it, and you have to find ways to delay and deflect. But I think, if you find a way to test it, like a smaller piece of it, to say, hey, I think we can do this. And if this succeeds, then we'll do your larger pet project. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Because look, as much as you think they could be wrong, you could be wrong as well. So that's the other thing to keep in mind.
Kim, this is one that's for you. How do you push back against executives who like the big rocks idea, but just want to squeeze in just that one or two more?
Man, I think that there's always the trade-off conversation, which is like, great, awesome. But we really don't have capacity to do all of these. Be careful of the capacity card, though, it can backfire. Only because you need to find the balance between a yes person and a no person to be able to say, I totally understand you, but maybe we could do this one first and then move on to this other big rock. That's kind of how I would generally do it. And then also force the prioritization conversation, which is like, which one is actually more important to you and what does that look like? And then the other opportunity is, you could drop more of the petals, but it comes at a cost. So just being upfront and transparent about the decisions you're having to make.
Yeah, makes sense. I suppose we'll go to a question for you. Fishbowl, your earlier company that was acquired by Glassdoor, it thrives on anonymity, which fosters sort of more candid discussions. Has your team considered the risks of introducing video and what kind of mitigations you've done to that sort of candid conversation that you might lose?
Yeah, so this was the first big feature I would say that was Glassdoor only, because we hadn't been able to answer that question. I think we're still trying to figure out, is there a market for anonymous video? Is there is it, and I would say the other thing that I know, I can't prove it, but people who, I've heard this from people who like text-based social networks have very strong opinions about video. You're either you're not a TikTok person, you're I don't know, a Facebook person. And so there is a lot of risks in that. But so we just kept them separate for now.
So this is also for both of you. In large organizations, how do you move away from providing estimates, especially when you need sort of a business case up front in order to get funding for that new product line or feature?
Sorry, how do you move away from estimates when you have to do a business case?
Yeah.
It feels like a bit of a oxymoron, Jungle Shrimp sort of situation.
Yeah, I think this question might be speaking to how the dream is no estimates, and in Paul's context, all of them are kind of made up in the first place, but
Yeah.
they still need them in order to get funding.
I mean, we used to do this in Two Cows all the time. We would do business cases and say, okay, you know what I think we need to do? We need to introduce email. By the way, it's before Gmail, so forgive us. That was sort of the idea. I think what we ended up doing in those scenarios is really keeping the expectations low on the business case, because they were never right, by the way, like never right. And then also extending the runway of how long it would take us to reach those dates, reach those financial estimates. But we were still having to provide an estimate of the date. They those two things go hand in hand. Like it's, if you want the estimate, they wanna know by when. I paid this money, so I wanna know by when. So is there a little bit of a give and take there? I don't know whether there's a good answer to that question.
So this is another question, at what point, if any, do you call off a product feature that's in progress? Specifically related to predictions, but maybe just in your own experiences.
I'm gonna let you.
Yeah, I don't think I've experienced that, so I'm not trying to think through, trying to imagine that scenario. I think if you're not able to control scope, because I think if you're able to control scope, you should be able to get something out the door and test the market. I think the scary part in that whole sentence I just said is, you know, is it viable, right? The V of the MVP, and so I'm not completely sure, to be honest.
So can you repeat the question again? I got caught up on trying to figure out which projects I've canceled in my career.
At what point, if any, do you call off a product feature that is in progress?
Okay, so there's a number of things I would say. Let's say there is, oh, I got one. The market changes. So for example, I was working on, I don't know why I'm telling two cow stories today, but it was an environment where we did a lot of predictions. So I was working on a generic payment gateway, again, 4Stripe, forgive us. But the point was that in the middle of that, the law changed where we actually found out that you couldn't have a group merchant account, you had to have single merchant accounts, which is a good thing because foreign people like to hide inside of group merchant accounts. Anyways, so, but the point is that we had to kill it because that was a big reason there, that it no longer made sense, the law was not going in our favor. So I think there's things like that. And then there's also times where a project is way too complicated and you gotta cut your losses and try to go a different direction. That has also happened before as well. Yeah, those two.
This is a question mostly because of the season that we're in, annual planning season. So this season is a lot of predictions are usually thrown around probably in every organization in this room. How do you approach annual planning? Do you approach it any differently based on, you know, some of the experiences through the companies that you've been at?
So I try to stick to OKRs and go towards outcomes at that point and say these are probably the areas that we will solve in this problem space in the annual planning piece, trying to give the team space to figure out how to solve it and to get a small chance to do discovery before the you know, when is it coming comes up. That's probably how I've done it. And then in past, it's more like themes, bringing up themes instead. If it wasn't OKRs, it depends on the organization, but that was another way of doing it, trying to get people to think in themes instead of thinking in features. Only because of how nascent, December is a really early time to talk about something for next September. You don't know anything yet.
Yeah, I thought it was a question about Christmas. So I think what we're trying to do at Glassdoor is move towards more of a, we'll see how it works, but like more of a monthly refinement. So what happens with annual planning is essentially a snapshot of what you're already thinking about. And that makes annual planning somewhat easier, but that makes you're kind of always planning, and we're figuring out how much of your time is spent in that. And you know, you're also partnering with other teams who are trying to figure out their plans. So that's what we're currently trying. We'll see if I go a little planning crazy after this experiment.
There's quite a lot of interest in what makes a small rock and what makes a big rock in your world.
Man, the details. Okay, what is a small rock? What is a big rock? Let's see. I'm sorry, Colin, I'm gonna use some Joe Fresh examples. Okay, so Big Rock, overhaul the ship from store program. Launch this huge thing. They got rid of their digital their main warehouse and then ship from stores instead. That was a big rock. It was a huge rock. The idea of overhauling how search worked or putting in, we had a related, like an image search sort of thing. Less of a big rock, but like in my mind, those would be smaller because you could cut the scope and you could move it around and it wasn't as business critical. So things like that, things that like with that, talking multiple months of work, and takes, multiple teams, you name it, things that are really hard to be nimble on.
Paul, in your experience, especially when you went from a small company to a big company, do you have any examples of how you built trust in your new environment early on?
The simple answer would be a lot of one-on-ones. You're not just connecting with them on work. It's, hey, here's where I came from with Fishbowl, here's what I'm thinking about, here's how it connects with Glassdoor, but you're also connecting with them in a real capacity. Especially in a remote environment, that's what I work in. You have to be very intentional about that. So that's the beginning of it, right? You're building these connections so you can have a lot of these, deeper conversations once you get to know what they're working on, what future things you're working on. And then, especially with this video one, it felt like I was using a lot of that trust. If trust could be a currency, I was definitely burning a lot of it to get it out the door.
Actually, same question to you, Kim, because you've gone to a lot of new organizations as well, but also you made the switch to a large one at one point as well. So
How to establish trust.
yeah, how you establish trust.
Wins early, I think is a big one. Trying to show progress early is a big one. I'm currently in 4th month of my new job, so this is fresh in my mind. How do we make change and make positive impact early in that process, and then really listening to understand where everybody's pains are at, and then bringing that together to be able to start solving.
And I'm very interested in this answer as well, Kim. Why did you leave product management and what brought you back?
Oh, that's a great question. I left product management because I was pretty sick of like what I was going through. It was I hadn't gone through all. I think as you progress through product management, you go from things happening to you to a roadmap to a strategy. I was kind of in the things happening to me phase. So I really was struggling with it. And I thought that I wanted to try something more creative because I wish I had gone to art school, I went to business school, so yeah, I went and left to do that. Then I realized, by the way, you can't make money being an interior decorator. Just put that out there as a TLDR. It's a really great thing to do later when you don't need income. So anyways, I got sucked back in by an interior decorating startup. So the rest is history.
We're coming to the end, but there's a little bit more interest in Paul on how video is positioned within Glassdoor, given that it's such a different, it's not anonymous, it's such a big change for the direction of the company. How is that sort of positioned with the leadership team? Did you convince the leadership team this was the direction, or did it come from top down? How did you approach this change in content strategy?
Yeah, I think it was a collaboration. I would say leadership definitely knew when they acquired Fishbowl, they were acquiring a niche product. It had a broad user base relative, but not relative to Glassdoor. And so you knew that it could work within a certain industries. And so we had to ask ourselves, okay, what are the things that make this not scale? What really drives this into a more broader use case? And I would say we came up with a list of things. I would say video was the biggest bet, and leadership said, well, we could keep trying to iterate our way out of this niche, or we start with the big bet or the big rock, the boulder. And we went with the boulder. So funnily enough, at the beginning of this year, if I thought I was going to be working on this, I would have said, no, let's take the more iterative approach. But I think it was definitely leadership front loading the risk, front loading, hey, we got to make a big splash, I think especially with a brand as established as Glassdoor. So
we're just coming to the end of our time here. is there anything that you would wish that you knew when you were earlier in your product careers? Any sort of pearls of wisdom related to predictions or positioning, but it could be general as well.
I think the one that I wish I'd known then is to understand why someone's asking. Like get to the bottom of the itch. Because sometimes they're asking for a date because they're worried about something. Sometimes they're asking for a date for some other reason. Sometimes they're asking for a date because they don't trust you. So get to the bottom of that and solve for that problem. The date is just a symptom.
I think for me, transitioning from software engineering to product, it was definitely. I was too risk averse. I think when you're an engineer, that's just definitely how you think. And it took me a lot longer than I think I had to admit to shake myself out of that and start taking more risks. Obviously, calculated risks, but I was always thinking about, what could go wrong. And sometimes as a product leader, you have to think about what can go right. And I think that took a long time.
And lastly, who do you go for inspiration, insight, learning? Is there any, written content, maybe video content that you consume a lot that you get a lot out of?
Is this product inspiration or generally?
It can be dealer's choice.
I'm gonna be boring. Like product inspiration is like Hagen Force or John Cutler. I definitely read a lot of. Also, Mike Fish, Fishbrain, I think it's called. He's the head of, God, he lives in the company, but I like his leadership stuff as well.
Mike Fish.
Is it Mike Fish? Okay. Or
Okay.
Fishbrain? I don't know. Someone knows this, right?
He's head of Mozilla right now.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like, I don't feel like I need to read more of these product books. I know Marty Kagan, I don't know some of these others. I do feel like I read a lot of economics. So it's a lot of economic podcasts for economics, Planet Money, and I think that just inspires me that you can, do behavioral changes in the world.
Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much. A round of applause for our two speakers. They'll be sticking around for hopefully a little bit, and I know there's a lot of specific questions asked in the Slido, so hopefully you guys are open to fielding a few of them. But yeah, so we're done for the evening. Once more, a big round of applause for Electric Mind. Thank you so much for hosting, as well as to all of the volunteers. Thank you so much for donating your time and your effort. It wouldn't be a product management event if we didn't ask for feedback. We do these every month, except for the summer. And so we're always looking for ideas of speakers, topics, things that we can improve. If you know a venue that we can do an event at, or a really interesting idea we can pursue, please let us know. We do read up and take all the feedback to heart. So thank you very much. Last thing, yeah, our last event of the year will be sort of a holiday social. It'll be mostly networking, games, raffle, that kind of thing. And it's going to be held back here on December 10th at Electric Mind. So that goes live, we'll probably go live tomorrow. So if you're interested in getting together, having a few drinks and celebrating a very hectic and busy year, that'll be interesting. So one last round of applause for our speakers. And yeah, we'll be here until 8 o'clock. So thanks very much, everyone.